To deliver on 5G's high promises, the industry needs to continue to evolve its network capability and proposition. But such transformation will not be without challenges. Let's hear from our panelists what discussion points they will share on the topic, managing the transition towards advanced 5G. I would like to invite our moderator for this panel discussion, Neil Shah, Vice President and Partner, Counterpoint Technology Market Research, to take it forward. Over to you, Mr. Shah.
Welcome to the ETTelecom panel discussion on transition to 5G. So we have our esteemed panelists here who are going to help industry educate on what are the challenges we face to transition or migrate to 5G from existing 4G, 3G, 2G networks. So we have Vishant from Vodafone, Mr. Kocher from COAI, Mr. Anand from Ciena, and Mr. Ludvig from Ericsson. So it's a very good panel, good mix of infrastructure vendors, operators, and the operator regulatory body. And so let's start the discussion. So if you look at the background, what has happened over the last year and over the even few years, how India has migrated from 2G, 3G to a 4G nation, and within the last few years, we have also seen India has raced to the top in the world in terms of data consumption, but the ARPU has not gone that high. But that is okay. It's a huge scale market. A lot of opportunities await as we migrate to newer generation technologies, and especially 5G, which opens up a lot of different opportunities for everyone in the ecosystem, as well as consumers, and businesses, and society, right? So to migrate to 5G, it's not going to be an easy task for such a big nation in terms of geography. And also, there are multiple challenges which we'll discuss within the panel. So let me start with Vishant. Vishant, being one of the top operators in India and building a very advanced 4G network with massive MIMO and everything. So what do you see as the next big challenge for transition to 5G? What are the top 3 things which come to your mind?
Sure. Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here. But before I go into that, I'd like to talk about how I see 5G. 5G to me is more than just a pure another technology. To me, it is really the framework for digital economy in India, and it has really a power to really transform the society and become a much more digital savvy, digital native society. So we should really be looking at it as a base platform to improve all industries in India. We can really improve the competitiveness, the efficiency, the productivity, the quality of all industries in India using 5G. So it is far more than any of the 1G, 2G, 3G, or 4G type of transitions that we have had. Okay, and in order for it to be that, what 5G has done is really reimagine the entire architecture of what a traditional telco network looked like. So it is a redesign of architecture in the core, in the transport, in the signaling, in the way the services are going to be used by the customers, self-provisioning versus provision from the backend. Is much more cloudification. It's about edge cloud. It's about so many things. And radio and spectrum actually, to me, is the smallest part of the change in 5G. It is important. It is it is an important and integral part of 5G, but there are far more changes happening in rest of the network as well. You mentioned our deployment of massive MIMOs. I mean, you're right. We have like 12,000 plus deployed them in India. I think it's the largest. I know it's the largest in India. I think it's one of the largest in the world, probably the largest outside China. So our approach on this has always been to prepare your network with as much of 5G architecture as possible in our 4G. So irrespective of what happens on the spectrum, we are going to be able to provide many of the features, functionalities, and benefits of 5G with our 4G plus network. Now, some of the key challenges, and I think these are very well known, Neil. Of course, the health of the telecom sector in India is certainly not very good, to put it benignly. And that I think that has to be paid attention to as the government goes about formulating all of these policies about 5G. I think the other thing is on spectrum. The spectrum policies that China and Japan have used, I think, are really worth looking at for the Indian government, because I think they have really recognized the fact that 5G is a transformative thing for the entire economy of the nation. And it can, it's a base platform for transforming so many other industries. So therefore, they have actually made the spectrum free, right? And I think that is something we as a country really seriously look at. If we want to drive a much higher economic growth, I think that is worthwhile looking at. Of course, then there are some enabling things related to spectrum as well, which is the backhaul. So, for example, the E-band spectrum, which is for the backhaul, government should really take a look at it and see what they can do to make it more, more readily available to the operators, because we will need that backhaul. There's no point in putting in a lot of spectrum at the front end of the radio without having a proper, backhaul capability in the back. Of course, then there are things like more supportive policies on things like fiber. It is quite a bit of a challenge in India to roll out fiber because it's a very fragmented way of administering that activity. Many municipalities, local authorities put so many kind of their own rules, charges, etc. I think those are things that we should be looking at as hurdles that need to be cleared to make 5G a faster and a bigger success.
So, Mr. Ludvig, what do you see from coming from infrastructure vendor helping operators solve these challenges, right? So, where do you see India in your view are the top challenges for operators apart from what Vishant said?
Hey, thanks. Thank you, Neil, and wonderful to be here with you. It's a great panel, and it's a really exciting topic. India is super exciting, right? So much potential, really on the cusp to 5G. I mean, this is an amazing place to be right now. So I think it's the most exciting place for this. And as Vishant was mentioning, it's really about industry transformation, industry and society transformation. It's so much more than just another G. And how often does another G happen? Really, it's not too often. Yeah. And when it happens, it's a big moment. And this one is, I would say, the biggest moment, because now we're going much further than just adding more capacity, making the latency faster, the capacity more. It's much more than that. It's really enabling all of these new use cases. And I think the real potential that it gives for India is that it's really about connecting all people to the mobile network. Still right. India has a bit of a lower penetration. It's about 70+% of penetration in India, and that is a bit lower. So I see 5G as a great potential to enable that cost per gigabit that is needed to be able to enable the whole population to connect. So that's one very important aspect. The other one is really how we view 5G as a platform, because this time it is not longer just another product. It's really a platform that enables new services because it is cloudified. We've built the 5G network, the cloud native from ground up, which means that you have much more potential to use it as a platform to enable new services. And this is really what we've seen in the networks that we've launched so far. So Ericsson, we've got 60 networks that are live today on 5G, and I have this, ticker. It's on the Ericsson.com site. You can see around the globe all of these, and it's across 32 countries. And what we've seen in these early, if we call them early launches, still, it's a lot of thought process around how does it not only deliver better service for my existing customers, but how does it open up new services? So this is really the most exciting part of the 5G.
Great. And Mr. Anand, your thoughts on, like Vishant talked about backhaul, and I think Ciena plays a big role in enabling a lot of those knobs for operators.
So actually, the way Vishant put it up, I think is absolutely right. See, backhaul will become very critical, right? It's not just spectrum or the other challenges that would have. So backhaul would be the underlying platform, which would be required. And it's not just backhaul. Actually, with 5G, it now becomes more of XHaul, right? So you have the front haul, right? When you disaggregate the radio, then you have the backhaul, which would actually connect. So it's not just the radio, which is really essential. It's also the complete wireline portion for the 5G network to really be successful. So you would have the various components there from a backhaul standpoint, which would be very critical.
Correct. So, Mr. Kocher, coming to you now. So you have been helping operators quite a bit on this journey for 4G, and now with 5G around the corner, what do you see are the biggest challenges in your position, right? Like Vishant talked about a few policies which government should consider, right? So how would you help operators and the ecosystem influence government to make sound policies which will accelerate this transformation?
Thank you, Neil. I would say that Vishant has already laid the foundation for the entire talk. He's covered all the aspects very articulately. And what I would like to build on that is that 5G is going to be foundational, and the government must understand that it is a foundation which is being laid on which all other sectors will build on, right? Telecom is no longer going to be a vertical. It is going to be a horizontal and a foundational horizontal. So therefore, government has to see it in that manner, and the nearest equivalent that we are drawing is water and electricity supply. So if the government realizes that this is an essential commodity which has to go to every consumer, then things will fall in place. And with that, we are telling the government that you have to look at 5G with different set of eyes, different set of policies, and different set of levies. What you have been putting on telecom as revenue extraction may not work for 5G because there is massive infusion of capital without too many use cases in the near future. So the use cases will come, it will take time. But before that, the infrastructure has to be laid. And if the government doesn't support this infrastructure, the foundation is going to be weak. So that is what we are trying to tell the government, that you have to look at these things. And certain key aspects which come out are, as brought out by the other speakers, spectrum is key, ROW is key for fiberization, and fiberization of at least 50% of the towers is essential. Then backhaul on E-band is essential, and we are insisting that the government should start allocating this now. So these are some of the aspects that we are talking to government about on behalf of the operators. And I would say that they are listening, but we are still in a discussion stage, and let's see how things pan out.
Very nicely put, Dr. Kocher. I would say 5G or even like mobile network is like on the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And I think that is something which should be a national economic agenda and at macro level, right? So I absolutely agree with all your points. So switching gears in terms of migration strategies, right? Many operators have different strategies, and since India might come up with a 5G network in 2022, so Vishant, do you see we can leapfrog to 5G standalone directly, or we still have to go through 5G non-standalone, standalone journey?
Neil, so I think standalone and SA and NSA, non-standalone, will both coexist depending on different geography. In my opinion, I think NSA should still be the anchor platform for us in India for quite a while to come. I think standalone brings with some benefits which are unique to it, such as network slicing or a more effective network slicing capabilities. But so depending on the application, we may have to make room for standalone. But I do believe NSA will be the majority of the deployments, and then SA will be done in a more kind of a selective fashion. Now, having said that, I think what we really need to start focusing on is not just kind of leapfrogging in technologies versus the world, but I think what we need to do is what are the things which are going to drive the maximum value for the Indian economy, for the Indian consumer, for the Indian industry, and we need to support that with the right kind of a technological framework. And that is so important for us then to then develop those proper use cases that really helps overall India story become so much more vibrant and attractive. Because I think when that happens, our industry, the telecom industry, will also benefit greatly. Yeah, the overall rising tide of the Indian economy will lift the telecom as well. So I think we really need to focus much more on the India-specific use cases, the things that will deliver maximum value for India.
Correct. Great. So, Ludvig, do you have any thoughts on that? What you are seeing around the world and what could fit for India? Do you see? Do you agree with Vishant's point on NSA versus SA? It is going to be a mixed bag, depending on the operator strategy.
It's absolutely going to be a mixed bag. I think Vishant said it very correctly. I mean, and that is also how we do as technology vendors. You know, the product that we have is called dual mode core. Why is it that? Because you can flexibly have both SA and SA in the same product. And that also means that depending on the strategy for the particular geography or for the applications that you want to run, you can flexibly run workloads across both, and you can start to move from NSA to SA when you want to do that with exactly the same product. So it is true, it will coexist. I do think that there is benefits of thinking of both. It's not that SA is miles better, because 5G NSA also has benefits. There's lots of handsets out there that support that already. In fact, the networks that are deployed also in India, you can switch on 5G just like that. It doesn't even need a software change. It just needs a go button, and you know, nobody would be more excited than us to do that. An important aspect is though that it is a big step to move to 5G, and what I encourage is that since both the NSA and particularly the SA architecture always is virtualized, always is fully cloud native for our case, it means that it's a big transformation not only in technology, but it's also a big transformation in the competency and the way that you run the network. And so here it's important to start early. And we've been fortunate in being early in India. In fact, with Vishant and with Vodafone, we've been very fortunate to be very early. And I think it's always been very exciting and congratulations on your new logo and
branding,
the reinforcement of the market. Yeah, branding with we. I love it. It's together we do this. It's really been beautiful, because that is where we started together virtualization very early, and that allows you to take the next step to 5G in a very smooth way, because half of the work is already done. So this is really important to start early, and that's why I encourage also for moving to 5G. Let's do that as soon as we can, because that is really how we get in India in a very competitive position.
Great. So, Mr. Anand, as Ludwig mentioned about, and everyone is mentioning about virtualization, right? So how are you seeing this virtualization happening on operator level, as well as we move to 5G, we'll also see a lot of private networks coming up, right? So how do you see your role in enabling those different networks?
Yeah, so I think, see, telcos in India have been primarily, as Ludvig also pointed out, right, leaders in virtualization, of the core mobile functions, even in 4G, right? They've virtualized the voice part of it, that, they virtualize the EPC and a lot of other network services which are getting virtualized, right? We are also seeing a trend where virtualization, the clouds are actually moving more towards the aggregation sites,
Right.
But I think what's really required is also, the underlying transport which is required to, get these edge clouds more active and, monetize them better. And also, the automation piece, right? That's becoming very critical, because that would really get these clouds, getting the value for the money for the virtualization piece, right? And to answer your point on virtualization, I think that's the trend which we are seeing. Also, if I could go back to the previous question, yes, NSA would be critical, right, and would be the foundation to move towards 5G. But if you really want 5G to be the economic driver, where you want, what we've seen over the last 4 months, where economic activity was stopped, you would need new use cases like connected manufacturing, which would drive the need for SA slowly but steadily, right? And virtualization would play an important role along with automation for that.
Exactly. So that is the point I was going to. Thank you for the segue. To start with, Mr. Kochar. So you represent operators, right? So operators are basically what we see right now are 3 or 4 operators we have. But as you see in with advent of 5G in many markets, we are seeing lot of different players getting into the mobile game. For example, BMW bidding for spectrum, and to Vikram's point on connected manufacturing, right? So they want to build their own private network. So do you see them as a part of COAI in future, such entities, enterprises who are trying to build their private networks?
And that's a difficult question, because I can't do crystal gazing for you. But I can definitely say that the Indian geography is going to be disaggregated, right?
Okay.
And the differentiator will be the reach and the capacity on two ends of the spectrum. In rural areas, reach may be more important, whereas in urban areas, will require capacity as the most important factor. So in that, it would depend how the network rolls out in 5G.
Okay.
And the priorities will also get dictated by that. Thereafter, whether private networks will come into India, or in what shape they will come, really it's a difficult thing to say at this point of time, because unless we have a aggregated response from a membership or from the government, it'll be only a guessing game, which may not be correct for me to say in this forum.
Got it. No problem. Vishant, do you see operators also enabling, empowering a lot of these enterprises in future, like connected manufacturing? Is it on your roadmap? And also, do you see FWA for household as a critical use case in 5G?
Sure, Neil. So I think there are a couple of things I should mention. When you talked about virtualization of the network, we are actually, I think, we're probably the world leader in this. We have done the highest degree of virtualization, cloudification. We have 80 plus 88 clouds located around the country today. It is the largest in the country, and I believe it's the largest in the world. I'm not sure about China, but for sure it is one of the largest in the world. And I think that cloudification journey is so important, critical for the 5G. Yeah, because I think that is like a first step that one needs to take in order really to unleash the full power of 5G.
Right.
Virtualization is actually yesterday's term. Yeah, containerization is what we are actually doing now. All right, so we now moved into the container, we call them CNFs, so containerized network functions, and that's where all the activity is right now, which will make that entire cloud so much more flexible and so much more agile. So therefore, I think that is one thing that we as operators can really do to accelerate 5G type of capabilities in the market, even without having to wait for 5G spectrum. Okay, so that is one. Now, one of the things that also does is when you do this and you deploy these clouds at the far-flung parts of your network towards the edge, those are compute platforms available for any industry to use.
Okay.
Right, whether it's an for industrial use, agricultural, service, it doesn't really matter. You have now a cloud with a very low latency sitting very close to you, so you can start doing things that you hadn't imagined before. Okay? So latency is one thing. The second thing it brings is it's also saving money from using like a big centralized clouds of the big OTTs. Right, because you don't need to ship those heavy traffic load all the way back to 500 miles or 1,000 miles away. It's sitting very close to you, save a lot of money in the bandwidth. So it saves money, improves latency. It makes now the platform is there for you to create services that actually benefit your business. And really, the future for most industries, I think all industries, if you're not a telecom player, is really about creating those services, those capabilities that add value to your top line, right? And that is going to, that comes from the software that you use to run your business. That comes from the algorithms you need to run for your business. By getting into a telecom business and getting into the infrastructure laying business, I think is actually counterproductive. You are actually diverting resources from doing things which really help your industry, your business immediately, because most of that value comes from the services you built using connectivity, using telecom. And that our vision is actually to take that cloud out to the edge and make it openly available, so you can host any service you want, and we will let you do deep integration, tight integration with our network capabilities. And that will unleash so much more potential and value. And 5G envisions things like SEF, which is designed exactly for those kind of things. And those are the kind of capabilities we would be, as operator, taking out to those other industries. So I think there is a greater value there on using those network capabilities, which are made readily available, hosted on a network cloud, and taking all of the benefits to create value for your business rather than having to build telecom network yourself. So those are, I think that's probably the more sensible thing to do from my perspective.
Got it. And any comments on FWA? Do you see that as an important part for rural connectivity? Or because of this pandemic, we see an uptick in demand for broadband, right? So do you see FWA as a?
I mean, FWA is just a term. At the end of the day, I think I saw some statistics, 97% of the traffic in India for internet comes from wireless networks.
Correct.
So from that perspective, India is using the traditional cellular services as a substitute for FWA anyways today, right? There aren't any other countries I can think of or large economies that I can think of where you would have such a low share of a fixed line. So I think in many ways it's already existing. I think specifically, if you're talking about millimeter wave type of technologies of 5G, for sure, I think there's space for it in India. What the millimeter wave will let us do is take fiber to the curb instead of fiber to the home.
Correct.
And that can accelerate broadband for home for many parts of India. But that millimeter wave is good for last 100, 200 meters at maximum. It's not going to be really good for very rural applications, but it's going to be great for many of the urban, semi-urban, or I would say probably even rural in India means a different thing than rural pretty much everywhere else. But
Right.
any towns are probably decent enough density. Millimeter wave can be a good application.
Ludvig, any thoughts on that? What you are seeing around the world and what would work for India? What combination? Because as Vishant said, everyone is already using mobile in a fixed wireless format, but it's more of a mobile hotspot. Maybe the level of service would be patchy with using phone as a router, right? But if you go with a proper CPE, do you see those kind of shifts working in India?
I think we'll see all models. I mean, the first networks that we launched in Ericsson, and we were the first in the world to launch 5G. We did that with FWA. But we did that also because it was a niche that was able to be reached that couldn't be reached before. We will see the same type of application in India for sure. But I think the real thing is, and I think both Vishant and Vikram has touched upon this, it's about the containerization and about making network as a platform, because then things start to happen by itself. You create a platform for new services, and to give you an example of that, the dual mode core that I was talking about, Ericsson was very early in virtualization. With containerization, we were the first to launch that in live networks, and now with the dual mode core, in fact, you can only buy it containerized. We don't have a virtual offering. We do not have a physical offering. We only have a container version. And just like Vishant said, this platform can enable great services even before 5G comes. Because of course, we support the 4G and the previous Gs with the same platform on this containerized platform, and it has two, very distinct benefits. One is that it not only enables these new services, but the other one is that you can do, upgrades in live operation. So you move to a CI/CD model, where it's not that you do an upgrade once per year or twice per year. In fact, the software gets pushed down into the product in live operation, which greatly improves the flexibility, but also reduces the cost that you need to operate the network. So by having this type of very flexible platform, and it should really be, adding new applications should be just like putting new apps on your phone. This is how we see the mobile network developing, and examples of that is verticals that are starting to onboard onto these. So we work with 40 verticals around the world in many different type of industries. And you mentioned the car industry. Car industries don't want to be mobile operators on their own. In fact, we see the best combination is when the operator enables the services for the vertical in question. And for that, we're working with both Mercedes-Benz and electrical car manufacturers for enabling their factories to become 5G connected. We're working with banks that are now enabling the edge cloud to be their platform for delivering a service instead. And we're working with games companies to ensure that the latency that they get for the games is using the edge cloud of the network. So all of these things are happening right now. So it's super exciting. And so it's containerization and the CI/CD is really what enables this.
Very good, very good. Vikram, any thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts on edge cloud and in enterprise, like Vishant touched upon that it's more of a platform, we're moving to containerization world. So how you see this move in India? Do you see it is mostly operator driven or the entire ecosystem is driving it?
Oh, well, no, actually, both Vishant and Ludvig have very rightly put it up, right? So it is the move, 5G will drive this towards the edge, right? So virtualization, containerization, as Vishant rightly put it, it would go cloud native, and it would be fully CI/CD enabled, right? Where you could actually have these, a completely automated atmosphere. And the whole advantage for that is because you could drive these enterprise services from the edge. But at the same time, I think the other big thing which is happening is the hyperscalers also wanting to move towards the edge.
Exactly.
Right? So you'll see the web cloud companies also going there and trying to drive these enterprise use cases. But I agree with what Vishant mentioned. I think it makes sense for the telecom service provider to drive these edge applications and for the enterprises to focus on their core business, leverage their applications to completely interop with what the edge infrastructure is, because that's the right just the right way of focusing.
Exactly. Thanks for taking up the cue of my question and including the hyperscalers. That is what I was asking indirectly. So thank you very much. So Mr. Kocher, one big another area of challenge which I could see is skilling of the professionals required to build 5G network, 5G applications. Do you see, we are ready for that, or as a ecosystem we need to do more, help universities and build that workforce for the next decade?
Yeah, Neil, that's a very important question, because no matter how many networks or how many technologies you roll out, if you don't have the skinware to run it, it becomes very difficult. Now, whenever a technology is introduced, you cannot have ready-made manpower available waiting for the technology to come in. It is a parallel process which runs concurrently. The old roles will fall by and the new roles will start coming up. So that is where the industry has to then work hand in glove with educational institutions, with the skilling ecosystem, to see that the right type of manpower is produced. They have to take advantage of the technology being brought in. So because 5G will certainly enable distance learning, and what we've seen even in COVID days with even 4G, that students are learning offline. They're getting buttressed by online courses, and they're performing equally well. Initially there were hiccups, but now the things are working well. With 5G, it'll even become better. With AI, AR, VR coming into the scene, we may not even require lab visits as much as we require now for training. So therefore, the ecosystem of skilling manpower and the ecosystem of technology being rolled out has to run concurrently, and they have to cooperate with each other. So it cannot be that one is running separately and the other is running separately. Only then the advantage can be drawn.
Are there any programs, Vishant, Vodafone training programs which you, as a CTO, because that is a very important thing, your workforce should be all up to beat. Are you running any such programs internally, externally?
Yeah, so Neil, I usually say this in pretty much most of my public speeches, is that behind all the technology is always the people. And unless you have the right people, buying boxes with the latest technology is not going to get you anywhere. You need to have the right people who know how to extract the maximum value out of this technology and tools and boxes, and people who can actually think out of the box, people who have a lot of creativity, people who are self-driven, self-motivated. Those are the guys that really make a company successful, and I think that is so important, right? So yeah, one is the skill, the other is the attitude.
Correct.
The attitude is the most important thing, right? The attitude should be about really, self-driven, self-motivated. I can always do better. Continuous improvement. All of those things are very, very critical. I must say, I've been in India for 10 years, and the level of dynamism I see in this country, I have not experienced it in any other places. Okay? I think Indians by nature are far more positive and far more dynamic. As the opportunities come, as Mr. Kocher said, as the opportunities for jobs come, people will reskill and get themselves ready for that work. So that will happen, and it is a parallel process, right? Now, some of the key skills that I see that we need to build on, and I think there is a global shortage of those skills, including in India. First of all, I think cloud. Is definitely one thing that we need to build more skills of as a country. So that whole infrastructure management. The second thing, which is an emerging skill that I see coming, is on network automation. where I think there is going to be a lot of activity, to automate our entire networks. It is quite amazing to see that telecom, which has been at the kind of the center of so many technology transformations around the world in many countries, is actually not very well automated. I think there is a huge opportunity there, and I think that is another skill that we need to build. The third is, I think, as we get into much more kind of automated and these high-tech technologies, data science, data analysis, ability to work with that data becomes far more critical. I think that is another skill which is going to be in high demand, and that's something that we, the industry as a country, should really try to develop and stimulate. But it is without those things, I don't think any kind of technology is going to make a big transformation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vikram, do you have any thoughts?
No, I completely agree with what Mr. Kochar and Vishant mentioned. Right, just want to add on to the additional skill sets around apart from automation and the cloud part, because it's very critical to tune. When you're tuning these third-party CNFs onto your cloud platform, right? I think is also the blockchain, right? That would play a very important thing. So knowledge of blockchain, which would be very critical to monetize this network even more and to run those applications.
Ludvig, do you have any thoughts on what you are seeing in terms of skilling for your workforce as well as industry as a whole?
Well, I'll give some examples, and I think the telecoms industry. I mean, the world has really shown it's resilient, during this COVID situation, and I think telecoms is maybe the ones that have showed that really how important it is for this. But we've also shown that we've been able to really adapt to this new reality in a way. The 60 5G networks that I mentioned that are running live in the world now from Ericsson, the bulk of those were deployed in COVID days, and that means that we've done a lot of that in remote. So it is so possible to do that. The trainings that we done, all the classroom trainings from the beginning of this year, we had to cancel all of them. So all our customer trainings, every single one has been done in virtual fashion. And the interesting thing is that we've actually trained more people in virtual ways than we've done before when we had classroom trainings. And I think that this meeting that we have here is an example of really what is possible to do. And often we reach out to more people in this way than before. So it's important to really look at what have we learned in this situation, and then take that and adapt into the new.
Yeah. So with that thought, I will ask one last rapid fire question since we're running out of time. Vishant, what is the #1 use case you see in next 5 years for 5G?
Well, I think I don't really think about it as a killer application or use cases. I think there are many use cases out there.
Sure.
Because we are, as it was mentioned earlier, we are a horizontal, so there will be thousands of use cases. Yeah, whether it is virtual reality, whether it is agricultural or transportation, there are many.
What would be the priority for Vodafone? Which you see needs the most transformation, which 5G can bring, according to you? It could be 100. Only one.
My priority is to create network as a platform. If you are looking for a tagline, that's what it is.
Okay, got it. Great. Vikram, what do you see?
Well, I actually agree that. Oh, okay. No, I had about 2, 3. Okay, but the changes, right? So gaming, remote classroom, e-healthcare, and retail, right? AR, VR, yeah.
Great. I got 4. Cool. Ludvig?
You want one? If it's only one, it's mobile broadband. Mobile broadband is the one, and it's really about enabling driving down cost per gigabit per second, and this is what 5G does for us.
Super. Dr. Kochar?
So I being the last person to answer, I would tend to agree with whatever others have said, because they said it all. But I would only put it with the caveat that the use cases in the urban areas are going to be different than the use cases in the rural areas. So possibly in the rural area, we may see agriculture emerging as a use case, healthcare emerging as a use case. Whereas in urban areas, maybe Industry 4.0 becomes the fastest growing use case. I think I will leave it at that.
Great. I think this was an excellent discussion. A lot of revealing and knowledge, and I think exchanged. So I think this gives also direction to a lot of those who are listening to this in terms of where the industry should go, could go. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Look forward to the next discussion whenever we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to meet you guys again.
Thank you, panelists, for your inputs. With this, we'll move on to the next session of the day. Before that, don't miss to fill the feedback form which appears after every session. Stay tuned.